Lesson 11.10. On this first page here, 759, it's crossed out. So move on to 760. We are describing equal parts today. So the last two lessons we've talked about halves, thirds, and fourths. We know to be a half, a third, or a fourth, those shapes need to have equal parts. And remember, equal is always kind of our main focus. So equal means that they would be all the same size. The parts that make up that shape would all be the same size. So today, these are some ways to show and describe an equal part of a whole. So they give you all of the whole shape is a rectangle, and a rectangle. And then they split this first rectangle into two equal parts, and then you will see the first half of it is shaded in or colored in. You can, today when you're doing your assignment, you can color in with a pencil, you can color in with a crayon or a marker, whatever you prefer. So because one out of the two equal parts is shaded in, we would say a half of the shape is, well, we'd say shaded. There says green because it was in color, but so a half of the shape is shaded. So because one out of the two parts here is shaded, we would say a half of it is shaded. So if we had three equal parts, so our shape is split up into thirds, we have three equal parts. So if one out of the three of them is shaded or colored in, we would say a third of the shape is shaded or colored. And then if we had four, or our shape was divided into four equal parts or fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4, and one out of the four shapes was shaded in, we would say a fourth of the shape is shaded. So down below here, for 1, 2, and 3, it says draw to show thirds. Color a third of the shape. So this first one here, they gave you a circle, they divide it into thirds. So that means there's three equal parts. And then they wanted you to color in a third of that shape. So one out of the three equal parts was shaded in. So this square here, if we divided this into thirds, it might look something like this. And when you're dividing these into thirds, just do the best you can. If it's completely off or it doesn't look equal at all, just erase it and redo it. But like Mrs. Smith's here isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. So let's say this is thirds. So 1, 2, 3, but then the second part says color a third of the shape. So I would color 1/3 or a third, so one chunk of it. And this would show a third of my shape colored in. And then you'll do the same for number 3. So all three of these are divided into thirds, and then you shade a third of it. Down here, 4, 5, and 6, it says draw to show fourths, color a fourth of the shape. So now I'm going to show fourths. I would show fourths. I think I'm going to do like a giant plus sign. All right, so I divide it into fourths. So I have 4 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have to shade in a fourth of that. So I would shade in one of the 4 parts to show a fourth. And it would look like that. And then you'll do the same for 5 and 6. You'll divide it into fourths and then shade in a fourth of it. All right, you're going to move on to page 761. So numbers 7, 8, and 9. You're going to draw to show halves and color a half of the shape. And then on 10, 11, and 12, you're going to draw thirds and color a third of the shape. And then 13, 14, and 15, you're going to show fourths, and then you're going to color a fourth of the shape. On page 762, number 16 is crossed out. You don't have to do it. So move on to number 17. Draw to show halves, thirds, and fourths, and then color a half of a third of, and a fourth of the shape. So for your circle, they want you to show halves. Your rectangle, you need to show thirds, and your square, you need to show fourths. After you divide this into halves, this one into thirds, and this one into fourths, you need to go back and you need to shade a half of this shape, a third of this shape, and a fourth of this shape. So there's kind of two parts to today's lesson with each shape. You have to divide it, and then you have to shade in whatever they tell you to shade in. Okay, then on to page 763. Number 1 and number 2, you're going to draw to show halves, and then you're going to color half of the shape. Number 3 and 4, you're going to show thirds, so each of these are going to be split into thirds, and then you're going to color in a third of those two shapes. Number 5, circle all the shapes that have a third of the shape shaded. So whatever ones down here are split into thirds and have a third of it shaded, you will circle it. And number 6, you don't have to do. On to the back, you're going to be on page 764. Number 1 says, circle the shape that has half of the shape shaded. Number 2, what is the name of this shape? So remember, you're going to count how many sides and then write the name of that shape. Quick review. Triangle has 3 sides. Quadrilateral has 4 sides. A pentagon has 5 sides. And a hexagon has 6 sides. So count how many sides and then write that shape name there. If you do not know how to spell triangle, quadrilateral, pentagon, or hexagon, sound it out best you can. Number 3, use a centimeter ruler. What is the length of the string to the nearest centimeter? Number 4, the clock shows the time Chris finished his homework. Write the time and then circle AM or PM. Okay, so you'll write the time that's on the clock. Remember, your hour hand's your shorthand, your minute hand's your longhand. And then remember the difference between AM and PM. We label a time with AM for any hours between midnight, so the start of a new day while we're sleeping, until noon, which is 12 in the afternoon. So that's usually when we are doing our read aloud in 2nd grade. So it's halfway through our day. So AM would be any time between midnight and noon, or when the 12 o'clock whistle goes off in Philip, that means that it moves over to PM. So then once that whistle goes off in the middle of the day, from noon to our next midnight would be PM. So those are like your afternoon things. So you'll write the time and then you circle AM or PM. Then this one says, what time is shown on this clock? So you're just writing the time, you don't have to label it AM or PM. And then that is lesson 11.10.